Hi everyone, welcome to Edna's Munchies. This week we're going to do my favorite cake. It's a white chocolate mud cake, and don't worry, there's no mud in it. But before we do anything, oven, as I said last week, is a 125, but be aware that your oven may be different, so 180, 150 depends. So mine is 125. So we have all the ingredients. What we need a whisk. There's nothing strenuous about this cake, so we need a hand whisk, a medium saucepan, a tin. Mine is 8.5 inches, but 9 inches will be okay, and a mixing bowl. So before we do anything, we're gonna start. So we have 250 grams of butter, 250 grams of sugar, 3 eggs, 350 grams of self-raising flour, 200 grams of white chocolate, lemon extract. On the extract, my tip to use: do not use flavoring, use extract, both for orange, lemon and vanilla, or even almond. I don't use almond because one of my kids is allergic to nuts. Another thing to be aware: when you go shops, the bottles and colors are all the same, especially the lemon and the almond. So be aware not to pick up the almond, especially if you have someone allergic to nuts. So I'm using lemon. Milk, I have 250 mils of milk. It doesn't matter which one. I use full fat. And baking powder. There's a couple variations for this cake. I will discuss it meanwhile. So before we do anything, we need to start with the saucepan. So because everything is already weighed, I'll just put it in a saucepan. We start with the butter, the sugar, milk, and the extract. 1 teaspoon, but we love lemon or orange, so I'll just eyeball it. I've been doing it for quite a long, and we don't mind the extra orange. The chocolate, if you have a bit of aggression, that's the time to lose it. You can break it, but I find that batching is easy. So the idea here is to melt all the ingredients. Do not boil it. Do not let it simmer. The main thing is just to melt everything. So that's the goodness of this cake. It's very easy. Once you have everything prepared, as I always say, always make sure before you start baking, have all the ingredients. Make sure you have everything, and everything is ready. So this goes in a medium heat. Keep an eye on it, because the last thing you don't want it to boil. So while that's doing, time to prepare our tin. So I already cut the parchment paper. So the easy way to cut, you use your tin, you put it on top of it, then you cut. When I do this, I cut several. I don't cut just the one. So at least when I need to bake is already there. Then you fold it into 4. If you fold it like this, and then into 4 like this, half again and half again, you come like this, so it's easier to cut the circle. So if you have several of those, keep it safe. And I have, like, every time I do, I keep it in a bag, so different sizes for different things. So when you want to bake, you don't need to do it all the time, every time you need to bake. So the next bit is very important, because the last thing you need is the cake to stick on the tin. There's many versions. I do mine that I've learned from since I was a young girl baking. I put the butter first, and then I'll put the parchment paper, and then I'll put butter, and then flour on the top. So that way I guarantee the cake not to steam, because especially if you're using a bigger tin, the steam will make the cake stick to the bottom. At least with the parchment paper, you guarantee non-stickness. And if you use a knife before you take the cake, just scrape it around the thing, you always have a cake coming out without sticking. Nice secret. Now we've done, we put the paper on the bottom, we've done the first bit of batter. So make sure the butter goes everywhere. Now we do the butter everywhere. Butter is all around. Make sure butter goes all around because we don't want any bits without the flour. Then the next step is just the butter, now the flour. I don't waste, so I use the flour. A bit extra flour in the butter, doesn't matter. So make sure the flour goes all over. Just get rid of the excess, and that's how you want your tin to look. So no gaps and every bit covered. Please remember, keep an eye on the chocolate, yeah? So I will stop, yeah? So one of the variations for this cake is the dark chocolate. Instead of the white chocolate, you can use 200 grams of milk chocolate, dark chocolate. Usually when I make the dark chocolate, I mix 100 grams each. And if you want it super chocolatey, the secret is take 50 grams out of the flour and add 50 grams of cocoa powder. If you add the cocoa powder on top of the flour, it becomes too dry. So that's the secret of, if you want to turn any cake into chocolate, remove 50 grams of the flour, add 50 grams of cocoa powder. If you don't remove the 50 grams, it will make the cake super dry. So remember that. But we don't like chocolatey cakes, so for the kids I just make white chocolate. And if you don't like chocolate, white chocolate, there's no cocoa on it, so you won't even know. So it just makes the cake super moist. So we're going to do the next step. We are just preparing for everything else. So we break the eggs. And put the flour away. So a secret, I know a lot of people say, oh, don't you sieve the flour? I don't bother. So I put 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and yes, I do have a teaspoon in my baking powder. I use it so often, I can be always looking for a teaspoon. I found it small and that fits on mine. Use the sieve. Use the sieve as a tool, and not only mixing the baking powder, you're making the flour nice and fluffy and putting air in the flour. And with the eggs. So the main thing of this cake is having everything prepared, because the chocolate mixture, when it comes out of the stove, is hot. So once we put that in the flour, the cooking process starts. So the last thing you want to do is not be prepared. So be prepared. Another thing, if you're allergic to eggs, I have done this cake by accident once without the eggs, and it actually came out really nice, a bit more dense than normal, but if I didn't tell my friends, they wouldn't know the eggs were missing. So if you're allergic to eggs or intolerant to eggs, this maybe is a good recipe to try. So remember, we don't want boiling, we just want the chocolate and everything to melt and incorporate. As that's hot enough, I'm just using residual heat to mix everything. And this cake is good to make into a tray bake as well. Or as I'm gonna make, you can make it, use buttercream, you can cover it. I usually use these cakes like for big functions, fundraising or anything, because I have a big tin. I just double the recipe and it's amazing. Okay, so make sure everything is ready, yeah? So remember, this is hot, so don't over mix this recipe. You cannot because the main thing here is just to incorporate the ingredients. If you over mix, it becomes too tough and too, so yeah. And you have to work quickly because the mixer is hot. eggs. That's all you need. Even if there's a couple lumps, it doesn't matter. That's all you need. That's all. As much mixing you need. Use the mix to scrape everything in it. And that's the rest of the cake done. That will be for 45 minutes to an hour, depends on the oven. Remember the secret, do not bang the oven door, either taking the cake in or out, and do not bang the tin in case if the cake is not dry and cooked, and then it will sink. Remember, you need a toothpick. The secret is when you put the toothpick in the cake, and if it comes wet, you go like this on your fingers. If it's wet, it's not cooked. Once it's dry, it comes nice and dry, and the cake is perfect. Ta-da! Here it is. As you can see, the holes where I tried to check the cake was cooked. So I'm going to cut in the middle. Big reveal. And by the way, this is a small cake for my family. Usually we have the double. And ta-da! So it looks so nice and delicious and so moist. We can have it cold, warm, custard, no custard, anything. Just go wild. If you enjoyed doing this recipe as much as I enjoyed showing it to you, have a great time. Stay blessed, stay safe. Thank you very much for watching.